Yes, I mean it. This game is better than Symphony of the Night, and this is coming from someone who loves that game and has no nostalgia for it. Yeah, I didn't grow up with a PlayStation 1, so I missed out on it back in the day, but I played it as an adult and really enjoyed it. Inverted Castle, true ending and everything. So let's see why this game is even better than Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Welcome to the channel. This is From the Void. Okay, let's go straight to the point. Record of Lodoss War Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth is better than Symphony of the Night because of the abilities that Deedlit has and how they are implemented, including the button layout, the pacing in which the game evolves, the challenge presented both in combat as well as exploration and platforming, and finally the boss fights, which make terrific use of those abilities and are straight up fantastic. I consider this a true masterpiece, even though many will point out one obvious flaw. It is lacking in originality, as it doesn't hide even a little bit to take heavy inspiration on the famous Castlevania game, both in look and feel. But I am not one to fault games too much or even at all for taking inspiration on another game, as long as they can justify it by adding their own personality to the formula and making it their own. And Record of Lodoss War does that a lot and then some. So let's get closer and analyze this game as we score it. Graphics and sound. There is not even a little bit of doubt that this is one of the most gorgeous pixel art to have been created. The animations are fluid and well detailed, providing the necessary number of frames to allow the game to be fast-paced while always looking stunning and cool. The most simple stuff looks as cool as possible always. Look at this. She could just do a regular dash, but instead she does a Street Fighter's Cammy Cannon Drill rolling kick with fire. I mean, what the f***? And what about the double jump? You think she just pushes the air down with her legs to do a double jump like everybody else? Of course not, she summons a gust of air that propels her while she spins several times. I mean, I'm not even gonna list all the great enemies and bosses and animations this game has. It's a perfect score on graphics, period. As for sound, the effects are solid and the music fits the game very well with several different styles of music, but there weren't any outstanding tracks that got my blood pumping, so in this one it could have been better, although it's still good. So in graphics and sound, the score is 1.8 out of 2. Gameplay and challenge. This is where I'll get into detail as to why Wonder Labyrinth is better than Symphony of the Night. As I said, the control scheme here is superb. It allows for the multitude of abilities to be easy to learn and use without feeling overwhelming. That's in good part because there is a dedicated face button for the bow and arrow, another one for her magic, and R1 does one very special thing I'll explain in a minute. Having a dedicated button just for the bow is clever and they make real good use of it. You press and hold the button to pull the bow up and you aim with the stick while she's locked in position. It may not sound like it, but it feels really organic to do it. You can even make great use of this during boss fights, and she can also use it in mid-air while she hovers. Using the bow is required for some sections in the game to remove obstacles, and there is even a shooting range to train in. Magic can also be used just as easily, and that's the same button used for items as well, which simplifies things. Now, let me talk about the R1 button. This is one of the most important mechanisms in the game. In the beginning of the quest, Deedlit will find two elemental spirits that will join her and aid her with their powers, Sylph and Salamander. With the simple press of R1, she can switch them back and forth. and this simply changes everything. At any given time, your weapon or bow is imbued with either wind or fire. The elemental spirit will help you out by throwing some spells at the enemies. You will become immune to that element, and one of the regular skills will be changed depending on which element you're currently using. With Sylph, you can float at a limited maximum height, while Salamander turns your dash into Cammy's flaming cannon drill that is longer and causes damage. The entire game makes a whole bunch of clever uses of these two elements and the fact that you can change between them seamlessly. Sections of the labyrinth will have to be traversed while floating, boss fights will have patterns that force you to switch between the two elements, and even regular enemies can be immune to one of them. And it doesn't end there. Each of the two elements has 3 levels of power. The higher the level, the more damage you will cause while using that element. And even more importantly, when reaching level 3 with either one of them, you replenish your health a few points per second just by having that element active. And here's the catch: to increase the level of one element, you have to kill regular enemies or cause damage to bosses with the other element active. This is great. You have no idea. It's impossible to put on words how much this improves this type of game. It allows for some crazy difficult bosses to become manageable because you have the means to replenish your health if you're playing well. I love this mechanism so much. It really transformed the whole Metroidvania experience to me. One of the things I see people frequently complaining about Symphony of the Night, and I agree, is that overall it's an easy game. It's fun nonetheless, but unbalanced in the difficulty, as Alucard can become too powerful too easily. I remember that only the very final boss in the inverted castle and another one gave me any trouble in the game. Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth feels much better balanced. The high elf is incredibly powerful, but her enemies, especially bosses, will put all of it to the test. I felt like the challenge was on point, just perfect. So in this category, nothing less than a perfect score will suffice. Bang for buck. Here we talk about how much enjoyment is there to be had versus how much the game costs. Of course, the prices vary a lot between regions, but way more important than the price is the enjoyment factor. Even a free game will get a 0 here if it sucks. At the time of the review, the game has only come out for Steam, but very soon afterwards, it should be releasing on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One and Series. But the Switch version has been delayed to January 28, 2022. Right now it costs $19.99 undiscounted. It's a steep price, but this is a high quality game, a rare kind of high quality game, one with a lot of soul. It's on the short side for a Metroidvania, lasting around 6 or 7 hours, but since those 6 or 7 hours are sublime, it's not a big issue here. However, there isn't a hard mode option or any other incentive to replay, which would be a very welcome feature for this game in particular, as the playability is so high that many would like to try an even more challenging mode. So this felt like a wasted opportunity, and I think it's the major issue in this category for this game. The only thing you unlock upon finishing is the boss rush mode, which is better than nothing but not great. Similarly to Symphony of the Night, the enemies you kill have a low chance of dropping weapons, and there is a whole completionist aspect around this with bestiaries and weapon companions to fill, but most people are not gonna care about filling the entire index. So despite being some of the best 6 to 7 hours you can spend on a Metroidvania, Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth gets a 1.6 out of 2 on this one. The sauce. The sauce is the identity of a game, the special qualities it has that bind all other aspects of the game together, resulting in much more than the sum of their parts, for better or worse. Here, Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth shines like few games ever do. First of all, the level design is great as far as Metroidvanias go, often making use of the element mechanism, full of secrets to discover and wonderful to explore. Second, using each of Deedlit's abilities feels awesome. How the sound design and animations complement the abilities themselves is noteworthy, and they fit her character very well. She's a high elf, so it is to be expected that she's proficient in archery as well as magic. By the way, the Record of Lodoss War setting is great. This is a Japanese franchise, originally created as a Dungeons and Dragons style tabletop RPG series all the way back in the 1980s. The franchise was expanded to novels, manga, anime, and several games, many of which were never released outside of Japan. The high fantasy world they create here, mostly through the creatures, is phenomenal. There are griffins, minotaurs, manticores, basilisks, and dragons. So many dragons. I miss this kind of setting in games, you know? There aren't too many of those around at all if you think about it. I fell in love with this entire mythos with Heroes of Might and Magic 2 and 3 back in the day, and it's so great to see a top of the class recent game using this setting. This entry continues a story of a group of heroes, but clearly aware that most of the audience is not familiar with it. The events in the game are all clouded in doubt, as Deedlit herself is not sure of what is happening. Although the story is not a focus here, it's successful in getting the player interested in a much bigger franchise than this game can portray. One last thing I want to highlight is that everything feels right and works well in this game because of how focused it is. Comparing it one last time to Symphony of the Night, that game has so many weapons, so many items, so many equipments, so many magic spells, that it becomes lost in its own infinite number of possibilities. It never makes good use of 99% of the stuff available. Deedlit has a whole bunch of weapons, for instance, but only 4 different hitbox types. So it gives a lot of freedom to the player, but still holds control over the challenge. And that's true for spells, for the bow, for the elements, the optional routes, everything. It's focused and it hits all marks dead center because of it. This is a 4 out of 4 delicious sauce. And there we have it, Record of Lodoss War Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth gets a final score of 9.4. This is no doubt a masterpiece and a must-play for Metroidvania fans. And that's it for the review. Hope this was informative and entertaining to you. If so, please consider supporting the channel by subscribing so I can keep making these. I can't hold much longer without turning this channel profitable, so I would really appreciate your help if you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel, and I'll see you soon.